Hello and good day to you, my beautiful friends. I do hope you are well. Welcome to episode 67 of Cross-Button VR, our journey into the world of VR. Now, I'm your host, Laurie, and it is an absolute honour to be joined by two of the most epic influencers in the metaverse. It's Reese, and making his return is Alex.
Whoa.
Whoop, whoop. And of course, you were here recently, but now I'm very pleased to confirm to our audience that you are back for good.
How many times?
Yes. I want you back. I want you back.
All the messages. Alex, we
yeah,
need you.
All those messages. Yeah, we've been getting comments and messages and emails and DMs and all this stuff.
Carrier pigeons, everything.
Mainly from Miles Dyer saying, Where's Alex? Where's Alex? Where's Alex?
Yes, you did ask me at WSD. Yeah, you did ask questions.
Everyone's been asking, Where's Alex? Where's Alex? It's been the whole VR community's been.
Yeah.
Terrified, but anyway, you've been back, and your exams and your coursework, everything's all gone in, and
everything's done.
You passed some of the exam, haven't you? You don't.
I passed my exam. Just waiting on my final mark of my coursework, and then that's all done.
Ooh, very good, very good. Well, we're very pleased to have you back. Obviously, we've missed your thoughts on Masternoid each week. So we've got a fairly busy episode today. I have been away all week, so I have played nothing. I haven't really done much. I haven't thought about VR that much. I've been on holiday. Reese has done a good job though rounding up the news for me to run through. I don't have much to say about most of it because I haven't seen a lot of the stuff.
It looks right, I suppose.
Yeah, no, I tried to do some quickly. I've tried to catch up on trailers and stuff and things that I've missed. So yeah, so we'll crack on with the show. But whilst I was away, you two did interview James Stafford from the CleanSheet developer INCISIV just to learn more about the game and what it's all about and stuff. So that's coming up. That's going to be the main part of this episode. But before then, we'll jump into the news. And the first thing I want to talk about is Behemoth. We saw it in the State of Play. And since then, there's been lots of hands-on impressions videos that have been out. Lots of all the people that we saw a few weeks ago or a couple of months ago now that went to go and play it, get some time playing the game. They were actually able to put out their videos with their thoughts and experiences. So, have either of you seen any of those or got up with any of those?
I watched some of Jammy Heroes one. Very highly regarded. He really liked it. So it was already hyped from the trailer. So I felt like any impression I saw by anyone wasn't really going to change that view. But they just kind of more solidified what I already felt about the game. So,
yeah. I watched Gamertag's 10-minute video on that. Excellent. I like all the stuff that he does. Yeah, it's just definitely made me even more hyped for that game now. So that's very cool. I think there was a PlayStation blog post about it as well with some more hands-on impressions type stuff. Although hardly the most independent of places to get your
I didn't read that.
But yeah, I think it's quite interesting. All the same. But yeah, it's looking really good. It looks very much like Horizon, Call of the Mountain mixed with Shadow of the Colossus. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that's fair statement.
The only thing I'm wondering about is how strong is the story going to be? Is there going to be much of a narrative, or is it just going to be hacking and slashing, beating up big old bosses?
Yeah.
I feel
that
like
was probably. Sorry, you go.
No, go first.
One of you go, for Christ's sake.
that was probably my concern from the trailer. Because obviously I've not been here since State of Play, and some of the writing seemed a bit dodgy. Like for some of the bits in that trailer, I'm like, oh, that made me kind of worry about the narrative side of it. I mean, the action and the gameplay and everything looks excellent, but I kind of agree. I'm not sold in the narrative bit yet. But it does look like it's going to be very satisfying.
I was going to say, obviously, coming from The Walking Dead, the first game story gripped me. I kind of finding what's going on next with the different factions in it. It did kind of dip off halfway through, and then I wasn't really finding myself too gripped to the narrative of the second game. So I think I'm a bit 50-50 on how it may be, just from their previous work.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't need to be
no.
life-changing, but it doesn't need to make me cry or anything. But just some interest to there could be no story at all. I'm not saying it's to be an amazing, brilliant story, but just a story would be nice to see. So it would be good if they could do a story trailer between now and when it releases. And you think Skydance, don't they make films, don't they? So it's a movie studio the rest of the time when they're not making VR games. So you think there'd be some pretty strong.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying the previous narrative in their games wasn't bad or anything. It's just I find myself like when gameplay is overwhelming in a VR game, I find it kind of takes away from the story a little bit.
Mm.
Because you get more interested in your minds more on that than it is in the story. This is how I've always seen VR.
Fair enough. Well, this has to be probably the most anticipating game on PSVR2 now coming up, I would say.
Yeah, I'd say so.
I'm sure we'll find out a release date for it soon, and we'll be talking about it a lot more over the weeks and months ahead. Any other thoughts on Behemoth before I move on?
It looks great.
It does, doesn't it? It does look good. Cool. Okay, another game that's already out that's had a big update is Stride Fates. And Reese, I believe you've jumped in and tried this out, have you?
Yes, I jumped in immediately after the update dropped. It looks instantly better. I'll give them that.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah, the shadows, the lighting. Yeah, when you get to one of the levels a bit later on in the game, it's like a Japanese style level of trees and things like that. You get a samurai sword, and the lighting on that level on its own just looks spectacular. But again, although they fixed their major issue that I had, which, like me and you said, was with the aiming. Because what you said about the aiming was very off. You couldn't aim properly. That's been fixed.
Okay.
But
cool.
again, there's still a lot of jank to it, and I had more issues with the game in relating to frame drops and also crashes since the update. So
better, still not quite.
Yeah, I'd say it's better if if it's something you want to look at. It's a lot better straight away when you put it on. But there's a lot more they can do with it. So
doesn't look like an N64 game anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Resolution wise. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, hopefully there'll be the final patch to get over the line with stability.
Yeah, hopefully so. But I think they've got the core stuff down, like the haptics and that stuff now. So they've laid the foundation more. I think they just need to kind of do a bit more quality of life stuff.
Cool. Next up, we heard this week that there's a game from indie sort of horror action game called Death Relives, and it's coming to PlayStation 5 and Xbox, but they announced this week it's coming to PS4, and then once they've finished and released the game, they're also going to port it to PSVR2, which is quite exciting. I did manage to check out the trailer for this, and it looks pretty cool, doesn't it? It looks quite impressive for a small indie studio that's making it.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. The art style looks really good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested in the story just by that trailer alone.
Yeah, cool premise for a game.
It looks very eerie. I don't want to, obviously, people can go watch the trailer. I don't want to spoil the trailer, but there's a lot to it. Like, even like the gun styles and things like that, it just kind of got me really intrigued of what the whole game could have.
Is someone being chased by some sort of Incan?
Yeah.
Is it Incan or Mayan or some sort of ancient South American?
Something along them lines.
God, and it seems like you're being sort of chased through some sort of temple. I don't know. Yeah, it looks very cool. It looks quite original as well, which would be pretty cool.
Quite unique. I'd give them that.
So yeah, look for. I mean, who knows? Even when the game's coming out and then the port to PS2 could be years away.
Could be another year, another year or two at least.
Yeah, it could be a while. So we'll park that one. Come back to that when we get the actual update and find out when the game launches on flat consoles and see if it's any good first before we get too excited, I suppose. Not strictly PSVR2, but I don't care. The Batman VR game. What's this? Arkham Shadow of Arkham. There we go. Arkham Shadows. There we go. We got there in the end. So that got a new Game Awards story trailer, and that's the only thing we've seen so far in this kind of E3 weekend that we are currently in the middle of. The only VR thing. Maybe UB Forward will have some more VR stuff. They occasionally have had some VR stuff, so we might see some of that at the Ubisoft conference. But we did see the Batman story trailer at the Game Awards, and this looks pretty cracking, doesn't it, guys?
Yeah, the story's intrigued me.
The Rat King, is it?
The Rat King, yeah.
The Rat King. Charming.
That's a terrible name.
That's a character.
I know. It's just every time I hear that character's name, it's just so terrible.
The more I see, the more I hear about this game, the more excited I get about this game. Yeah. One thing, anyone that's interested, I'd highly recommend you go and listen to Greg Miller did a Gamescast, a kind of funny Gamescast with Ryan Payton, the game director. So it was just as the trailer dropped on Summer Game Fest, and he'd done a 20-minute interview with him, and it was going into the details of the game. And the more you hear, the more this game sounds like a proper Arkham game, like in terms of how they're approaching the combat, how they're approaching the story, how the setting, everything about it is just sounding more and more exciting. This is my most anticipated VR game in the minute, and I think this is going to be one that really sets VR on a really good path. I think it's going to bring people in for those, because it's such a beloved series. The Arkham series of games is such a beloved series, and with the failure of Suicide Squad and Gotham Knights and Warner Brother themselves not really hitting the mark, and Rocksteady not hitting the mark, for someone else to come along and seem to be taking the care with the series that it deserves. I really hope this does well, and I hope it does bring people in, and it's sounding so good.
Yeah, it made me laugh during the show, and it was Twitter and the comments on YouTube were like, "No, not VR, fuck off, we hate VR, VR." But I mean, it was really, all the people that don't play VR, it would really annoy them, because there's lots of people that didn't like Suicide Squad, obviously went in a very different direction. Everyone just wanted them to stay true to their roots, which is what this game looks like it's doing. So I do think it will be a system seller, because I think a lot of people love this franchise so much that they will be like, "I'm going to need to get a Quest now," because I mean, it's probably going to be a system seller for me. Like, I'm going to want to pick this up. And it's very clever of Meta that last year they had the Assassin's Creed exclusive game, very mainstream title, pull people in. This year it's going to be a Batman exclusive game. Very sort of smart tactics on their part, that every big holiday season there's a big tentpole release that is in a franchise that non-VR gamers will recognise, and it will pull more and more people in, especially after how pissed off everyone was with Suicide Squad. Then now they get a chance. So this is the Arkham game you've been waiting for, and you just have to buy into VR to be able to play it.
Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. Really excited. The Arkham games, I think the first Arkham Asylum, probably one of the first games I purchased with my own money, after actually working to get some money. It was one of the first games I purchased, and just Arkham in general just kind of carried on through. And I was so happy to see none of the character models have changed as well. Like Jim Gordon looks exactly the same. And that alone just made me even happier that they haven't tweaked anything. They've kept it so true to how the original games looked as well. So, yeah. And even got the voice actor back who did the voice in Batman Origins. Which I believe it is him.
Between me and you two guys, don't tell anyone, but I haven't actually ever played any of the Arkham games. So just whatever you do, don't tell anyone else that, because I'll let you two know, but I don't want anyone else to know. So yeah, okay.
Ben, cut that part. You need to cut that part.
He won't. So also coming to Quest, just to continue their run of exclusives, Hitman 3 is getting remade for VR. And it doesn't look like a port. I think they're making quite a few wholesale changes, which obviously they're going to have to make the game work in VR. So it's another one that's a Quest exclusive. So yeah, fair play to Meta flashing the cash around, making it very hard to ignore that as an option.
It's the Zombieland devs as well again, isn't it? On this one. Yeah, they are busy. They're very busy this year, aren't they? We've got obviously Zombie Army come in, and now this. I like the way they're going for a cel-shaded graphics as well. I think I'm happy to see that, and obviously it's a bit easier on the system as well if you do graphics like that.
Is this Quest 2 or just Quest 3, isn't it?
Quest 3 exclusive, I believe.
Yeah, I thought it was just Quest 3.
I want to say that. I hope
but even still, I mean, Hitman 3 is a good-looking game, isn't it, normally? So
yeah.
So I can see why they had to make some compromises to get it run on a mobile headset. It's a shame, yeah, because the PSVR2 probably could have run it in the full graphical fidelity, but clearly
everybody was screaming out for a port of the one from the PSVR 1 they did. So there was really hoping for a Hitman 3 port.
Yeah, it seems to be the case at the moment that no devs, there's not the incentive to port the games over to PSVR2, and Sony don't seem to have any interest in paying anyone to do so. So, but clearly Meta have infinite money when it comes to doing things on they're burning just tens of billions of dollars.
How much did they
every
throw
year?
At them? Just literally sat there. It's like,
they say that they just pump money into their metaverse projects, don't they? Just to try and make that a thing. And I guess all these exclusives they're buying is part of that spend. And I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it. Fair play to Meta. I don't particularly like Facebook at all anymore, but they are building a market here, and they are investing in it. And they, if anyone deserves success in VR, it's Meta, just for the sheer amount of risk. And I know Zuckerberg gets a lot of shit off everyone for pouring money down something which people think is never going to happen. Gone.
But he comes across quite passionate when he talks about the VR side of stuff. I don't know if it's just me maybe looking into it. Sometimes when he talks about these new features, or maybe he's just that much good of a businessman that I kind of don't see through it. But sometimes when he's talking about these new VR features, he's probably just businessman talk, but he just sounds so enthusiastic about what he's doing for the system, what he's selling, and he just sounds so confident in his product.
Go on, finish.
Obviously, when you hear like confidence in the product, it makes you confident in purchasing it as well. But obviously, I don't want to shit on Sony, but at the same point, we're not hearing any marketing from Sony's side. And that's one thing I've always screamed for, is I just want some more marketing. So
yeah, they're not screaming confidence in their product, are they? But no, I saw when the Apple, what's the Apple VR headset called? What's it called? Sorry,
Vision Pro.
Vision Pro, that's it. I can't remember the name of the thing. And that's obviously like $3,500. And then Zuckerberg put out a video just going through some of the features and comparing it with the Quest 3. And it's just like our product's like $400, and then theirs is like $3,500. It's like 10 times
I
more
will say
expensive.
That video was a little bit sour though, wasn't it? On some parts, when you listen to it, it's like, it doesn't sound good on your part. You're like,
it's not very classy, but it's still it's not very classy. But the passion is what.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things where I saw it. Yeah, I think that's when I first saw it as well. Because why would you make a video like that unless you're completely scared? But there's no reason to make a video like that because your product's going to sell because of the price tag.
Yeah,
and it's the same reason why people still go for Quest over PSVR 2.
I've said to you guys now that I'm just waiting for to just get a lull in my VR backlog and stuff, but there's probably there's not.
Never happen.
Well, the games on Quest at the moment, there's the best games on there at the moment are pretty much on PS2. But when stuff like Batman drops, that's when it's going to be for me. But I can't.
I'd say with Quest games as well. There's a lot of small type of games that you can play for 30 minutes. You can just come off it and you feel like you've achieved something. There's a lot of them type of Sushi Ben experiences where every time you play it, you feel like you've achieved.
Bloody love Sushi Ben. Anyway, let's move on because. For now, this is not a Quest podcast. We'll see. We'll see what the future holds, eh? Beat Saber got his update that we talked about the other week about the official soundtrack 7 or OST 7. It's now out. Have you chance to?
I haven't had a chance to play it. I've listened to some of the tracks online. They sound very upbeat. I did. I jumped on last night before me and Alex were playing Quest. I jumped on Beat Saber just to have a quick look, and I played one of the songs. I think it was the Lindsay Sterling level, and I put on expert. And it was quite difficult.
Yeah, well, I would hope so. On expert,
I would hope so.
Okay, well, anyone that owns Beat Saber, free update there for you. Some new tracks, always worth checking out. And then final bit of news: you spotted that Tarzan VR is coming to PSVR2, and this is a PSVR 1 game. It's been on Quest already. It's coming on the 18th of June, so a week or so after this episode drops, I believe. And have you played that one on the original on Quest or PSVR 1?
No, I didn't play either of them. I like the look of the graphics. I just never got around to playing it at the time. But I've heard a lot of varied views on it.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'm sure you'll give it a go for us when it comes to PSVR 2.
Yeah,
Fun Chain are certainly keeping themselves busy. I mean,
definitely they are.
That 4 games in quite quick succession.
The train isn't slowing down, is it?
No, it's not.
Oh.
Full steam ahead.
Here we go. Choo choo. Okay. Any other bits of news there that you guys have seen?
Well, there's only one little thing I saw. I think it's part of IGN Live at Summer Game Fest. The Alien Rogue, whatever it's called, people had a little set, a little interview, and it sounds like it's getting less appealing every time you hear a little bit more about this game.
A lot of people are saying they're feeling less appealed by some of the stuff.
Yeah, and it's a shame because it's a big franchise and it just sounds like it's going to be another roguelite, and you're like, no, come on.
Roguelite? How does that work?
It's got Rogue in the name. Of course it's going to be a roguelite. They haven't announced it yet. That's the only thing.
Clues right there.
Yeah, everybody just doesn't want to believe it.
But how can that work on an alien play? They're going to remix the spaceship that you're on every time, or the sort of the alien nest that you're trying to get out of. Like, I hope
it's not roguelite. I really do.
Alien is a story-driven franchise. It's
all we've all been asking for, every VR player's been asking for, Alien Isolation in VR. That's it. A fully
I have
VR
not been
version
asking
of
for
that
for
game.
the record. I do not want that.
Not you, Laurie, because you're scared of horror games, which is understandable. They can be quite much at times. But although in heads of haptics and face huggers, yeah, I think I'm going to turn the other way if that happens. But no, I think a lot of people were saying it's a bit more action orientated by the sounds of it as well. Like it's going to be a bit more of an full-on action game than it is a story-driven horror game.
Maybe a bit like Returnal VR, which came on, so who knows.
I'll hold off until I hear a lot more, I think, with this one.
Still early days.
Still interested because it's Alien.
Returnal's a bit alien-ish.
Yeah.
Returnal. When's Returnal VR coming? Oh,
Remember
Sony, give that to me.
Remember when we thought that was going to happen? We thought that might be the thing.
You listen to this podcast.
Housemarque were teasing something, and it's like, it's a graphic novel. Fuckers.
We all looked at it, like,
Yeah, it's like every time. It's like, will you not learn, Twitter? Stop getting yourself all excited about nothing.
Everyone got excited about that. There was a post going around as well, so if you turn the picture to the right, you can see it says VR in the glass shards.
It's some sort of crazy online conspiracy theorists. Like, I've seen the clues.
I was like,
oh my god,
is he right? No, I can't. You're right. I can't believe that.
Bloody Returnal truthers over here. Well, let's move on to what we've been playing. I have been playing nothing, although I did go kayaking when I was on holiday last week, and my wife did. She was in the kayak with me. She goes, "Oh, it's just like that VR game you've got."
Just shows you how life like kayak VR, isn't it?
It was, yeah. It did remind me of being in the Norwegian fjords on my kayak. So yeah, but that's the only thing I've been doing.
That sounds very virtual reality to me. VR. That counts.
And that wasn't even virtual; it was real. It was just a reality. Yeah. But anyway, you two have been playing some VR stuff. So tell me what you've been playing.
What do you want to start with first, Alex?
Well, we'll go Silent Slayer.
Yeah,
I think that's the new one. So sorry, we're taking a little quest tangent here, but it's worth it. So
yeah, we're all VR. Every VR these days, isn't it? We like it all.
We are VR.
Yeah, we are VR.
Yeah,
sorry, carry on.
I'm now completely forgetting the second half of this name. Was it Silent Slayer?
I've just been calling it Silent Slayer. Has it got a
name? It does have a little bit after it, but we'll just go Silent Slayer.
Talking about the game.
Yeah, so it's a puzzle. It's basically a puzzle game, but it's like a horror style puzzle game, and you have to you need to work your way through. I think it's 9 different puzzles to get to stop this ritual from happening, and the puzzles are basically based on these vampires, and you need to essentially do different things for each of these coffins to stake the vampire so that they can't complete the ritual. But if you don't do it right, you make too much noise, then it basically you get a proper jump scare and the vampire comes for you. And it creates such a great level of suspense. Like you're properly like doing this so carefully to stop this vampire from waking up and jumping at you. And it's things like you have to take a bar off the coffin, you have to open the top half of the coffin, you need to get nails out of the coffin, and then you need to like decipher these little symbols and stuff. And it's very well done. It's from Shell Games, who have made like the Expect You to Die series and things like that. It very much fits their mold, adding a little bit of horror into it, and it's light horror. It's just like a jump scare essentially if you fail the puzzle. But it's very good. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Sounds like there's board games where you have to sort of like tiptoe something and not set off the trap.
Yeah, a wee bit essentially.
Pretty much.
Sounds a bit like Buckaroo.
Buckaroo with vampires. Yeah.
Buckaroo VR, that's another one we could put down the list for developers.
Mm-hmm.
We're just making a Hasbro VR game collection at this point, it seems, don't we?
Maybe. Anyway, so
I tried it last night and I had to come off of it after screaming too loud, so much so that I could hear the missus laughing downstairs. So, yeah, I didn't listen to the dude where he said, open the coffin silently. So I just pulled the shards out of it really quickly, and then it kept coming up red things on my screen. I was like, why is it doing that? Which I'm assuming they are your warnings as to, you keep messing up, it's going to wake up. So because I took the 2 locks off, and then I heard the bloke go, oh, and by the way, open the coffin silently. I was like, oh, okay. That makes sense. So then I opened it, and he was still asleep. So I was like, okay, that's fine. So I was searching for his heart, because you get this little fragment where you have to search for their heart inside of their body, because they have the ability to move their heart around their torso. which is a really
Of course
cool
I do.
idea. It's so cool. So literally you have to scan it, and then it kind of gives you a marker, and that's where you got a stake. So I was like, okay, that's fine. Yep, scanned it, found his heart, and then you have to do this ritual type of thing with this stake before you can actually stake them. You have to do it in like a certain shape. So you have to kind of like make the motion with it and then stake them. I finished making the motion, and then literally he just pounced out at me, and I just screamed. I just didn't see it coming because I thought he was soundo, and it's like I said, there's so much suspension with this game, like. It's tense the whole time while you're doing it because you're like, I don't want it to wake up, and then you're like, was I too loud on that last one? But me was just like, take it all off, yeah, let's go. But no, really good, really like it.
Yeah,
Cool. It sounds really cool.
Yeah, I think I'd do really well coming to every VR headset as well. I think because as soon as I died, and I was like, oh, could you imagine that pouncing with the headset haptics and things like that? So it just made me think of like other ways that this game could be elevated, and yeah. But no, really good idea, really cool concept, very unique. It seems quite fun and also a good little party game to give to people when they're there. Cause there you go, because there's not much moving around. You move with your arms on the table if you want to move, but you don't really need to. So if you did just want to give it to a friend to try out, it could be like quite a little funny experience for you to watch them as they mess up and then just jump. So, yeah.
No news on PSVR2 port, I take it?
No, nothing at the moment.
Oh dear. Oh well.
But yes, the full title is Silent Slayer: Vault of the Vampire.
that's it.
That's very cool. And you've both been playing another thing as well, haven't you?
Yes. Crazy Kung Fu.
This is a PSVR2 game.
This is a PSVR2 game. So it did release. It released. It's another one of these ones that released 2 weeks early, and then it didn't release, and then it released again, and then it.
Yeah,
so,
there was a lot of confusion about the release date.
The hokey cokey.
It was very hokey cokey.
But it's quite a simple game. So essentially, how it works is you've got a pillar in front of you, and you've got basically the pillar spins, and you've got you could have up to 3 arms on the pillar, and those spin in different directions. The top one could be going clockwise, and then the middle one anti-clockwise, and then the third one clockwise as well. And you're essentially watching the targets coming towards you, and some of them you need to punch, some of them you need to hit with your arm, some of them you need to dodge, and then there's other bits you just need to punch as hard as you can. Mm-hmm. It gets faster and harder, and it is good fun. Quite a wee bit of a workout. It's more of a workout than you'd maybe expect.
I think the first time I played it, I was playing it with you, and I could literally hear you heavy breathing down the mic when you was punching the ones in the middle, because you was literally going really thrashing the middle bar on it. It was quite funny to hear. And then I hadn't played it at that point because I was doing the tutorial, and then I joined the game and completely did the exact same back down the mic. It is a good workout, especially when you go on the 2 bars. You got the one in the middle, and you got to dodge, and you got to keep blocking and things like that. And like Alex said, it gets faster to the point where you are going like this, constantly moving around the whole time. It is a good workout. We did have a couple little issues on the multiplayer. It seemed to be fine completely on single player. I didn't have any issues there when I tried a few levels. But on the multiplayer, you could play a game, and then when it got to the ending, it just crashed. And that happened multiple times. So clearly needs to do a little bit of a fix there. But from what we played single player, it was a lot of fun.
It does look good you get all these kind of VR fitnessy games, and it looks very different from all the other ones. I didn't know it's not strictly designed as a fitness game, but you can see it's something that's going to get you moving and get you active and stuff, and it definitely seems to stand out in that respect.
And it does look
very
nice.
Simplistic.
Yeah, nice art style as well. Yeah, very nice art style.
And again, I think it goes back to what Alex always says. It says a lot for simplistic games in VR. They just work sometimes. Just having such a simple style, a simple idea, nothing too over the top, and you can have fun with it. Just replay value. You don't always need these big over-the-top experiences in VR to have fun.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So it's one of those that I think it does have a good lot of replay. I believe there's also a platinum on it for any trophy hunters out there. Alex, can you confirm that?
Ooh.
I can't confirm it because I haven't checked, because I'm not a trophy hunter.
I'm not a trophy hunter either, so I didn't check. I think it does have platinum. I think it does have platinum.
Shit, you're not a trophy hunter.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does.
Yeah, speaking of trophy hunting, have you seen they've added some new trophies to Astrobot?
Yes.
The rescue mission. Is that it?
Yeah, I did one
Playroom.
of
them. Playroom.
Yeah.
I would never get those two. Not around in my head. Yeah, Playroom. So and you can get the PSVR2 is in Astrobot playroom now just to troll everyone.
Yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant. This is a giant virtual PSVR2 they've added to the museum place.
I
yeah.
laughed so much at that. And if you stand in front of it, obviously, because sometimes Astro will kind of, if you leave it idle, he'll put a PSVR1 headset on and start moving around as well. And it just makes me laugh every time. It's almost like they're constantly trolling us at this point.
Did they? Because on the Labo originally, you can, if you bash the PSVR1, it comes on.
Rescue mission.
Yeah. So what happens if you bash the PSVR2? Does it come on?
It's up in the sky. You can't hit it.
Oh, I bet there's a way, and I bet you can finally do a way, and then they'll reveal that's where they're hidden the trailer.
Yeah, maybe.
No.
If you hit the PlayStation portal, though, it plays the trailer to Astro. Is it just called Astrobot, the new one?
Astrobot.
Yeah, just Astrobot. Yeah. It's really cool how they've done it, because it takes you to like command center where they're counting down the T- for launching this new mission. It's a very cool in-game advert for the new one.
And in the background, you can just hear the Astrobot.
Yeah, the new song.
The instrumental to it, and the whole time I'm like,
Astrobot. Yeah, and they've added some things in the levels you can go and find.
It's four new bots, special VIP bots they're called,
and that'll get you some more trophies. Just anyone that likes Astrobot and trophies, just thought I'd let you know. I should put that do, shouldn't I? Yeah. Cool. Anyway, Crazy Kung Fu VR. Well, you said about simplicity things and just simple things. It made me think what someone should do is WarioWare style thing in VR. Just hit me with just 30-second mini games, just constantly mix it up. That would just work so well in VR. And you can play that with mates. Mm-hmm. You can play that as a multiplayer thing with mates. Anyway, there's another idea I'll throw down for the VR development community to pick up.
You're just giving them out, aren't you?
I am. We should charge for this, or we should set up our own studio. We've got the time.
CBVR games.
We finished your coursework now, so CBVR games. That works. Cool. All right. Any other thoughts about what you've been playing, gentlemen, before we move on and wrap up this episode?
Crazy Kung Fu. We're also going to be doing a giveaway for it.
Oh yes, of course.
Yes, we're giving away 2 EU codes and 2 US codes. So,
cool. Can I win one?
You've already got one.
Oh yeah, of course I have. Well, so people should check out, and that's going to be on our Twitter, isn't it? If people
we'll give out the information over there. But yeah.
Cool. All right. So anyone watching or listening to this episode on YouTube or audio, just remember to check out our Twitter. Follow us if you're not already at CrossButtonVR, and you can find the details of the giveaways to win some codes. Yeah. Cool.
And just very quickly, because I feel like you'd be incredibly disappointed if I'd really been away all this time and didn't come back and say, I've been playing Masternoid.
Hey!
There he is.
I have.
It's the Alex bingo card.
Yeah. Because I hadn't played it for ages, and I hadn't played anything from the last update and the last seasonal levels and stuff. So I went in and I've been playing a wee bit of that and chasing some scores. Because big shout out to Star72 who's gone and taken all my high scores. But that guy's put hundreds of hours into the game, so fair play to him. But there's a couple that he can't beat, and I'm quite proud of that. So, yeah.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you've got a rival now to go back and
talking of high scores. We also found out somebody beat our high scores on Vetrix Worlds, didn't we? Yeah, so we were trying to reclaim that as well at some point.
And we nearly did, and we kept screwing it up, so...
We both screwed it up. Don't put it on me. You made a few mistakes too.
Well, I'm glad you're back on the Masternoid train, Alex, and we can have our weekly Masternoid slots back again.
Yeah.
Cool. Right, let's move on. Just remind everyone, if they want to support us, they can give us a sub on the service they're using, however they're doing so. And if you're a YouTuber, like and subscribe us, leave us a comment and all that kind of stuff. I've already mentioned it. Twitter, you can find us at CrossButtonVR. You can find our Discord as well and joining the conversation there. And I'd also just like to take a little moment to let you know this episode is now sponsored by Kiwi Design. And they specialise in producing and designing accessories for Meta Quest. So whether that's cable management, controller grips, battery head straps, they have you covered. And you can help support us and save a few $bucks by heading over to kiwidesign.com or using the link in the description. And if you enter the code CBVR at the checkout, you get 5% off. So that's kiwidesign.com. You two are both huge fans of your Kiwi stuff, aren't you? Alex has got it right behind him on the shelf.
Alex got it right there. Mine's literally to the left of me.
Very, very good. Such the great weight management in the head straps. The
very
controller
well
grip's really good as well. And very well made. Nice packaging. All good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So check out Kiwi Design, and thank you to them for sponsoring us. And now going to move on to the main part of this episode. Although I feel like we've had quite a chunky, good chat. It's been nice catching up with you guys. But let's move on to the interview you two did with James Stafford, who's the CleanSheet from CleanSheet's developer INCISIV. And obviously we talked about CleanSheet a few weeks ago on the show, saying how much you're all enjoying it. So we thought it'd be great to have a chat with the developer, and James Stafford is kind enough to join us and chat to you both. So we'll switch over to that. But before then, though, everyone, thanks again for listening. And if you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could please tell your family and friends all about us. And if you'd like to get more involved with us, don't hesitate to drop into Discord and say hello. I've been your host, Laurie. These two have been Alex and Reese, and we'll see you again next time. Until then, here's our interview with James.
I'm going to start with the harder question I think we have. Why do you think the press are giving PSVR2 such a hard time?
Yeah, it's a good question, and from a developer's perspective, it's a big question, because when we decide, right, where are we going to go? Are we going to launch a new title? Or are we going to try and bring an existing title over to PSVR2? We obviously do our due diligence. We do our research. We try to figure out, what's Sony's market share in the industry. How many do we approximate? How many PSVR2s are out there? And obviously, when you start doing this research, there is the question. Obviously, you start doing your Google research, and then you get all of this press coming up, like IGN's questioning, is PSVR dead? And the YouTube community asking, is PSVR dead? Where's the exclusive titles? And it certainly plays heavy on our mind. It'll play heavy on a lot of developers' minds. It's do we stick with the tried and tested MetaQuest, or do we decide to bring over our title to PSVR2? And I actually think it's unfair. A lot of the doom and gloom is around the lack of exclusive titles. And yes, okay, fine. You can say PSVR2 went hard at launch, and then they sort of backed off on the exclusive IP and stuff. But actually, there is a really cool piece of hardware there that actually can open up a lot of doors for pre-existing titles and do more interesting stuff. Like the increased overheads from the power of the PlayStation 5 allows developers to do a lot more exciting stuff. And I don't think that should be forgotten about, is that you've got this really cool piece of hardware. And the other thing, certainly from the marketing side, that I think it gets an unfair rap is actually, okay, yeah, it doesn't have as big market share as Meta, obviously, but there's a strong community there of players, and they actually feel quite passionately about the hardware. And that's something we certainly noticed we've only been on the store for 2 weeks, but certainly that is something we've felt from the community, is there's a strong player base there that really just wants this piece of hardware to succeed. And I think that's something that developers should really consider with thinking, should I or should I not launch on the PSVR2? It's there actually is a player base there that you can tap into, which is really exciting.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. I've always found, again, I started on the PSVR 1, and I've always found the player base and the community of the PlayStation VR to be quite strong and very passionate about the hardware that they have. So I do think it's a very good way of looking at it, because there's a lot more word of mouth, I feel, on the PlayStation VR side of things, other than over Quest, obviously, because there is a smaller user base, like you said, it's obvious. So I do think, obviously, with having a smaller user base, you do get more people communicating with each other and saying, this game just came out, this one's really good to check out. So
yeah. And I suppose from that perspective, as you're saying, they're doing your due diligence and whatever, we know Sony don't put the figures out there, and we know getting that data is pretty difficult. What kind of was it for you guys that made you kind of take the plunge and say, right, okay, yeah, we're going to do it? Was it the hardware more than anything, or was it anything else?
It's an interesting question. I mean, the market share is part of it. So that's sort of the business side of the decision is, pragmatically, we know how many players we've managed to acquire in Quest. So if we look at the market share data, they would then decide, right, what proportion of the global VR players are from Sony, and then you decide from there, okay, we'll bring these across. But there's other considerations at play. One of the considerations, which was sort of more a hypothesis when we came into PlayStation, was when we were launching, because we were on Quest, we're on App Lab from 2022, we were on there for a year and a half, and then we launched alongside the Quest 3 onto the main store. Quest has a very strong presence in US and UK, so that's where they do the big amount of their business is in those two territories. But I don't think Quest has quite cracked the European and Asian market just yet, certainly from our experience. So actually the PlayStation and Sony has a much better ties in European countries like Italy, Germany, Spain, Saudi Arabia, if you want to go further east, obviously Japan. So tapping into a more global database, PlayStation 2 was a great asset for us in that sense, because it allowed us to introduce our game to new players, which was fantastic, because suddenly we're getting Spanish reviews and Brazilian reviews and Saudi reviews, and like you're getting, because like obviously we're football and game. Football is the world's biggest sport. We shouldn't just be in the UK and the US. We should be inherently popular globally. And thankfully now that we're tapping into the PlayStation 2 side of things, the player base is much more evenly spread, I would say, which is another factor which developers should consider, is if you're finding you're getting this really strong UK, US bias, there is a headset that can better tap into these territories, which is obviously the PSVR 2.
And that's probably a really interesting thing that we've not really thought about from our perspective. And I suppose the countries that you mentioned, and you're saying like football is a global sport, but probably the kind of countries that you mentioned, they are quite big footballing countries, your Germany's, your Spain's, your Saudis now with your Saudi Pro League and kind of trying to market there. So it definitely is a very interesting point. And it kind of takes me a bit more towards, obviously, how you guys started out wasn't necessarily as this kind of wider consumer product. It was more a kind of niche piece of software to be used in more athlete, like kind of more like professional training.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of get from there to this kind of wider consumer product?
Yeah, it's a funny story, Alex, because you're absolutely right. We initially started, we built, like our background is we're all scientists, so like we're not game developers, we're not 3D modelers, we're not any of that. We have those now in our team, but that's not where the company initially started. Where we were just a group of psychologists, and we had studied, especially our CEO had studied sort of professional athletes, elite sport, particularly around the psychology of it and like what makes a good decision. She did a lot of research. She worked back with the great AC Milan team of the mid 2000s. Your Kakas and Didas and Shevchenkos. And really, she did all this great research, and she was using the very, very, very early iterations of VR headsets back when it cost like $200,000 to get a 3D headset that could you look around and simulate things. So she did all this great research, and always the frustration with us as researchers is you publish a paper after doing years of research on this very specific topic, you publish it and 10 people read it, and then nothing happens.
Yeah.
So there was this frustration from us of like, we want to get this thing out into the world and have people playing it. So the obvious thing in our head was, like, let's get this into professional teams. So we initially built CleanSheet as this elite goalkeeping training tool where goalkeeping coaches could like simulate different types of shots. So if you can imagine you're playing like, a West Ham on the weekend, and you got like James Ward-Prowse coming up, and because he's one of the world's best free kick takers, and you're panicking, and your goalkeeper's going, where on earth is he going to put this? You could simulate like his last 50 free kicks, so the goalkeeper has that level of confidence to go, you know what, I've seen this before, I know how much spin he's going to put in, I know how much where he's going to place it. So that's where we initially started, and I don't know, like selling into elite sport is a massive headache, because there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of sports tech companies, and they're all promising the world to these like very select few clubs. So you just get lost in the noise. So we were banging on doors for a long, long time. We had trials at like Leeds United and Nottingham Forest. We managed to get in at a club in Belgium called RUSG, Royal Union Saint-Gilloise. And they're actually the best team in Belgium right now. So we were able to trial out our system with pro clubs and pro players. It's funny, I tell the story. When we first started working with RUSG, their first team goalkeeper is the international goalkeeper for Luxembourg. And he was playing, Luxembourg were playing a friendly against Portugal that weekend. So as soon as they started using our system, the goalkeeper for Luxembourg made an amazing save against Ronaldo. At the time, we were just like, our system helped them make saves against Ronaldo, so we were able to sort of make these really cool But essentially what happened was we just got so frustrated that we weren't really getting anywhere with the pro team. So what I started doing was I was like, right, let's start promoting some of this, what we do on like TikTok and YouTube, and just getting the word out there. Maybe a pro team will see it. And then suddenly we started exploding on these platforms, getting millions of views and thousands of comments going like, why is this only for the elite teams? Why can't I use this in my own living room? I'm a young goalkeeper trying to break on my school team or trying to get into the academy at this club. So we just thought, you know what, we're going to take a punt. So we just adapted it a lot because obviously there's lots of these fancy analytics and tools in the pro version which wouldn't necessarily translate into a gaming system. So we had to gamify a lot of the serious stuff that's in there. And, that's where like you notice in like set play and quick fire, it's very fast paced. Like you're sort of constantly saving and moving. Whereas the reality of a professional goalkeeper is they're standing there for like 85 minutes of a 90-minute match doing nothing, just watching the game. So we had to make it more paced and more like dynamic and fun for the players. So that's really our introduction, and we managed to launch then on Quest and App Lab and build up that audience. And because we got to this point now where we've built this established audience in Quest, the natural progression for us was to move over to PSVR2.
I think that's a good way of putting it as well. Like you said obviously goalkeepers using it a lot, and that's the main reason. And when you put it on TikTok and everyone's saying, "Oh, we want to try this as well," that was one of the things I noticed when actually first playing it was how intense it does feel on set play. Like that actual feeling that somebody is about to take a shot, and you're looking at each one, deciding, okay, which one's actually going to take the shot. And it really did take me back to the times that I used to play football in goal. And it was really nice because. Yeah, I've not had that feeling in a VR game before where it's like kind of taking me back to, playing on the school football team and things like that. So it's cool. But yeah, them set play shots can be quite intense.
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right, Bruce, and that's what we want. Is you want that feeling that here and seeing the shots. The big USP for us at INCISIV is that we don't animate. We use raw motion capture from actual athletes, whereas the majority of games will hand key and animate motion, and it will, like, motion capture is getting more prominent now, obviously in AAA studios and stuff like that, but they'll still like tweak it and keyframe it to be what they want it to be. The shots you're seeing are genuine shots from professional footballers because that's what makes it real. Otherwise, it would feel quite fake and artificial. Like I've played a lot of like VR football games and video games on flat screen, and it's fun, but you can tell it's not real. Like that's not somebody who actually did that. That's somebody who's created that in a Maya or a Blender or an animation platform. So actually, it's quite nice for us because we just go out with motion capture suits, capture everything, and then just import it into the game, and then line everything up. To make it feel really, really authentic for players, and that's what creates that sort of visceral flip shots coming right at me, especially like short range where they're getting a header in the 6-yard box and you have to like get your hand from here to here in like half a second. That's what makes it feel real.
Yeah, and I mean as well, like, me and Alex have played both versions of the game now. Obviously, we tried the Quest one first, and then when it came to PSVR2. What was the devs' favourite thing to add into the game? Obviously, with the haptic features being on the PSVR2, was that really fun to implement in any way?
Yeah, the haptics
was it a task? Was it difficult?
Yeah, well, like the PlayStation 2 is a challenge to develop for. It's more powerful, but there's also each platform has their niches and their specificities on what they want you to do as a developer. So Sony are very particular over what they want from their developers. But I think definitely the haptics was a big one, right? The specificity, and what we love is the head haptics, because obviously in Quest we've never had that sensation of hitting the ball before, and then having a ball come at you and hit you like directly on the head. You're like, oh, flip that! Like it's really intense, but really cool. One of the things actually I really like from the Sony platform, and it's not even specifically a VR thing, but it's actually really nice, is the automatic capture of achievements. So like if you unlock an achievement, it will actually automatically record the moment that happens. I really love that from a marketer's perspective because it's so hard. Like we all know, we're all content creators in this space. We know how hard it is to capture VR footage. And the moment you do something really cool or capture that achievement you've been going for, if you happen to be recording at that specific moment, that's lost forever. So having Sony just have that automatic tool is actually really useful. And the final thing I'll say, and this is definitely my favorite thing about PSVR2 over Quest, is actually the increased frame rates. Now that sounds like an obvious answer. Okay, yeah, you've got smoother motion, blah blah blah. But it's really, really important for our game, because you need to be able to track the motion of the ball, and if the ball takes a deviation within the last 5 meters before you save the shot, that you have to anticipate that properly. And if you're jumping frames, then it's much more harder to anticipate that change of direction. So when we went on from MetaQuest, we were obviously capped at the 72 just because that was the limitation of the hardware. But with PlayStation, we were able to bump it up to 120. And that additional frame rate is actually really important because that's often goalkeepers, it's millimeters difference between a save and a miss. So having that increased frame rate is actually really, really intense and really powerful for our title specifically. So those 3 things I definitely would say would be the 3 that jumped out at me when we started developing for the platform.
Yeah, because I think what that point you raised around capture was one I brought up in the last episode I was on, because I find it really frustrating on Quest for exactly the reason you're talking about. You could go and you do something. I was playing Ultimate Swing Golf and I hold a really good putt and I'm like, oh, that was great. And I'm like, I wasn't recording. You can't record anything backwards. And I'm like, well, I want to share that. That was good. And then, but with the PlayStation, at least you can record your last 3 minutes, 10 minutes. It's recording in the background as well, even if it's not done that but the ones with the auto trophies, I do like that as well, because you do want to go and share that little bit of. That's the whole point of these things, and that's where social media comes into its own with this stuff, and how you guys have probably found since you started promoting it is the little things that you want to share. But yeah, definitely completely agree with that.
I've been watching James's TikToks, and what he wants to share is him diving around this big hole with a headset on. You've got to watch them; they're crazy.
That's what I'd quite like to do as well, to be fair.
When I watched it for the first time, that was literally what I thought. I was like, I need a big room to play this game in. I can play it in my room, but I now want a bigger room so I can actually dive and things like that. Have you found it more difficult to do the TikToks, though, with the wire attached for the PSVR2?
Definitely, just for the way I like to create content, my content's really intense. So I love doing, the full-scale dives. And, when we first launched... with the Quest 3, obviously mixed reality was the big thing alongside the Quest 3. So what we did was I got a semi-professional goalkeeper into a real-life 3D pitch, and we mapped out clean sheets to the real size football pitch. So he was genuinely playing football inside virtual reality to scale, and he was doing the full scale jumping top corner dives and everything. It was brilliant. But as we said, the trade-off with that compared to PlayStation is he's saving it at 72 hertz. So he'll miss something and go, I should have saved that because the ball jumped a frame. So there's pros and cons to all this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing I think we've always been saying. There's pros and cons to both devices. They're really good in each way, but it depends what the person wants, really, doesn't it? I think one thing I'm kind of curious about, obviously, because with INCISIV being a company that's making sports games, I know they've got clean sheets. I did see there was something else that you worked on. It seems a bit more like a techie type of thing to research stuff. I don't know how.
That was a good way of putting it.
Is it MoveVR? MoveVR? Something we give with an M.
Yeah, it's called Mover. And what Mover is the scientific term for it is a neural fitness tool. But what that really means is we're measuring movement modalities of the brain, right? So the use case we use it with is actually concussion. So we work with professional teams. We work with all 10 professional ice hockey teams in the UK. We've worked in the past with Scottish Rugby, Italian Rugby. We work with Stoke City Football Club. And really what that tool is used for is if a player, let's say you have a head clash in soccer, you're both going for a header and you bang heads. What happens is traditionally there's a pen and paper test where a doctor will come out and say, what's the score at the minute, what's the time on the clock, can you touch your finger to your nose? The problem with those tests is they're so easy to pass and so easy to fluke. And players obviously want to get back onto the pitch as quickly as they can because they want to play. If you're, Mbappe and you're playing in the World Cup final and suddenly your team doctor's telling you we need to take you off, what's he going to do? He's going to say, no, I'm fine. Bring me back on. So what Mover is for is if you saw a player suffer, say, for example, a head injury, we can use VR to measure things like balance, decision-making, cognition, to see, like, okay, is there anything weird going on there? Is there any sort of differences post-head injury that there was pre-head injury? So it's a much more serious side of our business, but something that we're really, really passionate about.
I think it's very interesting.
Yeah, and I was going to say, it's a very hot topic at the minute as well, isn't it? Because constantly in sport just now, between the long-term effects of sports and head injuries, and it's far more in the spotlight than it's probably ever been.
100%, especially.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really good way of doing it.
Yeah,
yeah, that makes sense. Good old rugby players. So, I mean, with that then, what other sports games do you think you could bring to VR? If there was one that you could choose, at least.
Well, I can't say too much about it right now.
Exclusive.
We will be announcing it hopefully in the next few months. So it's very similar to the gameplay style of CleanSheet, where it's motion captured athletes, rich, like you feel like you're playing against people, but it won't be soccer. You can sort of glean a little bit more from what we've just talked about. It's much more around that sort of rugby style evasion. So if you can imagine CleanSheet is intercepting objects, our next title will be much more avoiding. But with the caveat, you're avoiding professional athletes. So you can sort of use that as a bit of a cue as to what we're going to be doing next. I must actually let you guys know once we're ready to tease some stuff about it, to get you guys on it, get some early play testing and stuff like that.
Definitely.
Have to come I can already feel those haptics.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you bring it straight to PSVR2, just get knocked to the floor.
I mean, and then now PSVR2 works with a haptic suit now as well, doesn't it? So get the full motion. Yeah.
Could get that going, couldn't you? That would definitely be interesting.
And I suppose that's the next title, James. What do you guys envisage still to come? I mean, I don't think there's a lot more content at the minute on Quest and PSVR2 for CleanSheet. I'm not wrong in saying that, am I? So it's a plan to bring more of that DLC across.
Yeah, absolutely. So when we first launched on PlayStation, really it was decision. We could continue to delay this and delay until we bring it to party. But what we thought is rather, let's just get it out into the community, because the big question mark for us was always with the PSVR2 is a tether system, and we still weren't really sure how gameplay would feel with the tether, just because it's inhibiting. So, but thankfully we found that the community doesn't seem to mind it as much as we thought they might have. So the next step for us is bringing it to parity with Quest. So the two big differences for us between the Quest and the PSVR2 version at the minute are multiplayer. So Quest currently has two multiplayer game modes inside CleanSheet, which are Target Clash and Goalie Wars. Goalie Wars is like a 1v1 style player mode, where essentially what happens is you'll take turns being the attacker or the defender, right? So the goalkeeper, you'll take turns with this catapult. You'll pull back the catapult and you'll be shooting soccer balls towards the opponent's goal. And you can either be the goalkeeper in that scenario, where you're trying to stop the player shooting the catapult at you, or you take turns being the shooter. So then you're the one trying to fire the balls into your opponent's net. And really what we're doing is, it's basically who gets the best aggregate score from those two sequences, right? So if you keep a clean sheet in your section of being the goalkeeper, and then obviously you score one or two goals from the other side, you obviously win the game. The other one is Target Clash, and Target Clash is kind of like, I wouldn't call it like capture the flag, but it kind of has that sense of you're surrounded by targets within a hexagon, and the job is you have to claim targets by chucking the balls at the target. So if you chuck the ball at the target, you claim it, and you've got like a set period of time to claim as many targets as you can. The opponents can claim the targets back, so you're constantly trying to battle over who can dominate more of the board. So essentially, the two modes are, you've got that PvP style and then sort of that capture the flag style game mode. So we're working on bringing those over to PSVR2 at the minute. And then, as you said, Alex, the other thing that we're doing is the DLCs. So the one that we have on the Quest at the minute is called the Favelas. So really, if you can imagine that Brazilian street soccer style mode, so essentially it's essentially set play, but it's with that Brazilian twist where we brought in actually we motion capture parkour athletes to do like sequences of movements like really stylistically and flared, and then obviously you then go into the game in this much tighter pitch, it's a much smaller pitch, and you're getting these sort of back heels, Rabonas, flicks, overhead shots, to really sort of have that variety of play. We're actually in the middle of developing the successor to the Favelas. So we have Favelas as our first. The second of our DLCs will be London Cages. So London Cages is much more that street style, caged football, smacking the ball as soon as you first touch, like fast paced. So that'll be our next successor to the Favelas. So, but yeah, as you say, Alex, what we're trying to do now is bring PSVR2 up to level parity with what we have on Quest.
Awesome. A lot to look forward to.
Definitely.
Yeah, we're busy.
Keeps me playing. It'll keep me playing. That's good to hear.
Yes.
Is there anything else you want to ask, Alex?
No, I think I just want to say thanks for your time, James. It's been excellent to speak to you.
You've given a lot of insight as well on the things that we don't actually hear about with the PSVR2, the background stuff, and I think a lot of things that we actually, as players, take for granted on the system. So I think that's really good to hear. So yeah, thanks for being here.
This has sort of almost been a business discussion, hasn't it?
I mean, it's meant to be less professional, but we've kind of ruined that side of it.
It's just incredibly interesting to hear the background, to be honest. Yeah. It's nice. It's a very different story from what we're used to hearing, and hopefully it's one that brings you guys a lot of success, because there's a hell of a lot of hard work going into it.
Yeah, a lot of thought as well.
The realities of being a small studio, with the bigger studios who have publishers, it's a very easy conversation to go, right, we'll just launch on every headset going, we'll do it. The typical is I'll do a Pico PSVR2 Quest simultaneous launch. For indie studios, it's a lot harder because we can always devote our time to so much. So usually that's where you see the ports. You see that we're launching Quest first, that's a safer bet, and then if we get success, we port. So I know there's a frustration in the PSVR2 community of like, we don't want to see ports, we want to see exclusive titles, but it's just the only way the indie studios can operate right now without backing, is that we have to go with the popular, more casual headset and then port over when we've got that audience.
I'm a firm believer that indie studios carry VR. It's always been that way. Even back in the PSVR 1, it's always been indie studios constantly releasing games, and they're always passion projects as well. And that's the thing you want to see, because when you play something, you can feel that passion. You can definitely see it's there. Whereas opposed to something that's really big made, and you can see the passion's there sometimes, but other times you can just feel that it's just been done to a timetable and have to get out. I think it's definitely something you can see.
100%. I mean, the way to think about it is you've got the big IPs, that's great, but they're few and far between. So you need indies to keep the platform going while those things happen. So it's very synergistic.
And I think what a lot of people still forget is, even though VR has been around, it's been around for a while now. It's still very much in its infancy, and still very much there's no rules to play by, and it's the indie studios that are bringing the innovation and that are really pushing VR to what it can be and will be. And I think you can want all these big games and want all these big exclusives, but if you're going to get a big exclusive from Sony, it's going to be something safe, and it's going to be, they'll push the power of their platform, but it's not going to be something that's going to go out and push the boundaries. And I think the indie studios are the ones that are doing that part of it, and that's the bits that, of all the year and a half now, roughly, we've been doing this, that we've enjoyed, and you obviously longer, Reese, because you were in there for PSVR 1. It's certainly been the highlights for us.
Yeah, it's always been the more little games that I've played over the bigger ones that I like. Don't get me wrong, I still finish the big titles that come out, but sometimes they might take me longer. I might go back to them, whereas an indie title, it'll come out and I'll play it, and I'll get locked into what they're trying to tell, the story, the narrative, the gameplay, everything they put into it. You kind of feel at one with it in a way. It's kind of a weird way of putting it, I suppose, but you do kind of feel what they're trying to get at. I mean, sometimes it doesn't always portray because of bugs, glitches, and etc., but I think it's always nice to kind of experience some titles, and it's always been that way with VR.
Yeah. The best example is always Gorilla Tag, right? So it's like, I was one person who was a professional Echo VR player, then moved over and started developing this by themselves. Really unique, weird style of locomotion that like no one had tried before, and now it's like one of the biggest VR games out there. So it's like a AAA studio would never put a punt on that, right?
No.
Even you could even tell Meta were freaked out by the success of it because it was on App Lab way longer than it should have been. Exactly as you say, Reese, it's the indie studios who are going to push the boat out and do something out of weird and wacky, which can, as you say, Alex, will innovate as the platform grows.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right there. I think that's pretty good.
Yeah. Thanks again, James. It's been really great to speak to you.
No, thanks, guys. I mean, I'm a big fan of the podcast. I've been listening to you for a long time now, and the stuff you do is great. And the passion you have for it comes through. It's just like as soon as we were launching on PSVR2, it's like, oh, we need to get the cross button guys on this, because you guys, like, I don't, you probably do know it, but you guys have more influence than you think. And I think the bigger studios would be wise to keep an eye on you. And hopefully you get a lot more of these bigger studios coming on board with you guys and sort of getting you to do these play tests. Like I saw the likes of Behemoth are getting these, big influencers on board for VR and stuff. I personally, from my experience, find that the less flashy influencers who have built an audience and talk to their audience are much more valuable than these sort of, I get 1 million views and then I post the next video and I don't really look at my Discord. I don't really have time for those kind of people. But for you guys, you're just doing this out of passion, 100%. So no, big fan of what you guys do.